excited.
I know. It's hard, right?
It's hard.
But when the well drill is getting excited, it's hard to not feel the excitement.
It is. It's exciting. It's an exciting day.
Bugaboo, come on, we have to get inside. It's gonna rain. Yeah, come on. Let's go inside. It's gonna rain, come on. Bugaboo, we have to fill the cisterns. What part are you gonna do? You're gonna run the water softener, or maybe you could set a timer on your phone. You do have a phone, right? Is that your phone? Bugaboo, do you have a phone? You do? You have a phone? And you've not been telling us about? Okay, seriously, petting has to stop because we're gonna run out of water. And if we run out of water, that means no pets. Well, it's cistern filling day again, and huge milestone, it has been 1 year since we started using our well. We didn't drill the well a year ago. It actually took us a couple of months to get everything set up and operational so that we could start filling the cisterns. To date, according to my records, we have used about 45,000 gallons of water from the well. That's actually not true, because the way we're operating the system right now, we're actually priming the well for about 15 minutes before we use it. If by some chance this is the first video on our channel that you're watching, jump back. We actually have an entire playlist for the progression of our water system. It started with 6-gallon jugs that we carried by hand and we brought with our car to fill our RV. And then we went to kind of a temporary, more permanent system. And then eventually we were able to bury the cisterns that we have at the top of our hill and develop a gravity-fed system. That worked really good. And then about a year ago, we got really fortunate. Our well driller called and we were able to successfully drill a fairly shallow well for this area. And it has been producing a copious amount of fantastic water for the last year. To help us monitor our cistern water levels, we installed a wireless water monitor, and that's been working fairly well for the last year, although we did have one issue. The transmitter at the tank has a battery in it that's not replaceable, and it appeared to have died. It has a small solar panel that it uses to keep a charge, and even though there's sun up there and everything should be working properly, it just stopped transmitting. We kind of diagnosed it, and in the end, the manufacturer just sent us a new transmitter. And so far, since that new transmitter arrived, this display has been working fantastic. Not being able to monitor the cistern water level just doesn't work. Our water usage is ironically fairly consistent in the off gardening season, but during gardening season there's definitely kind of a ramp up as we get later into the season. So having a way to monitor our water consumption and truthfully to keep an eye on the cistern level has been priceless. We paid a premium. I think if you go back and watch the video, we did a comparison of I think 4 or 5 of these systems, and we ended up choosing one that was probably the one I was least likely to select. But anyway, we chose it, and this one actually has a sensor that goes into the tank, and I think they run about $500 or so. Prior to having some way to monitor things, of course, we had no way of knowing how much water is in our cisterns, and therefore, you're kind of just ballparking. The best case scenario, I guess in some ways, is that you overfill the cisterns, and that way you know they're full, but now you've wasted water. And of course, the worst case scenario is you run out, and now you're panicking to try to get water back into the system so that you don't have to go without a shower, or worse yet, can't flush the toilet. It just so happens that the way our system is designed, we have about 2,500 gallons worth of cistern capacity. I'll show you the water softener in a second, and per cycle on the water softener with the hardness of our water, it just so happens that we can fill these cisterns about halfway full before the system has to regenerate. So what we try to do is about 50% or a little less. We like to run the system through one full regeneration cycle. That'll bring us right up to 99, 100%. And then we always have about a half a cistern, or about 14 days worth of cushion. So if we're too busy, we're sick, we're out of town, whatever the situation is, we've got about a 50% buffer in the system. Right now we're going about 12 to 14 days between fills. When we get into gardening season and we start using water to take care of the garden and other summertime needs, we'll be on about a 9-day fill cycle on this guy. So it does take a little bit of work, it is a chore, but twice a month really is not that big of a deal to keep our cisterns full, and we've got gravity fed water, so if the power goes out, it's not a big deal. This water softener system is actually a full treatment system, not just for softening, but it also takes care of clear water iron, which we have. And then it also has a chlorine setup in there. What it does is liberates the chlorine atom from the salt. And therefore it's adding ever so slightly amount of chlorine to the water that ends up liberating once it's sitting in the cisterns, and it kind of has a sanitizing effect. So instead of having to inject chlorine into the system, we're just using what's available in the salt, and that's all done by this one unit. The way this is set up is for our hardness, and it tells us that we can do about 1,350 gallons per regeneration, and so that's what we've been doing, and so far we haven't had any issues with the water quality that this unit is producing. When I first was looking at water treatment setups, I was going to try to build some sort of redneck DIY system, but the company that installed our well pump for us recommended this system because of the water conditions that we have, which are middle of the road hardness, and then we also have clear water iron, and it just so happens that the media that is in this unit is designed for those water conditions. To simplify our life, we added this kind of manifold looking thing here, and I'll kind of explain how that works. So right now, some of you are thinking, well, why isn't your system plumbed into your well? And the answer is we're not there yet. So we got the well drilled, we got the softener, but prior to the well, we were actually transporting water from a community water source, and so we were just pumping it to the cisterns. So effectively, that's still what we're doing. We're just running the water through the softener, and then it's going back out and being pumped up to the cisterns. So we're actually still running off of our gravity-fed water system. We're just filling the cisterns on demand. So the well has really just saved us the effort to go get the water from the community water source. Under normal operating conditions, this unit would be plumbed into the well with a pressure tank, and the water would come in here, and then it would just go back out, and it would go to whatever your your shower or your sink or whatever the outlet is. That is coming. I don't want to talk too much about our future water plan because I want to save that for a different video. It's a fairly complex topic, and I want to be able to cover it in detail. So stay tuned. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the future, where we're going with phase 2 of our water system. These units are not cheap. If you're looking at water treatment, I think you can get a normal water softener for around $1,000, and I think we paid almost $3,000 for this unit. The difference is we have no filters that we have to replace. We have no consumable media. And this one takes care of the clear water iron also, which is not something that you can do with a filter because it's a chemical reaction. It's not rust, it's actually in solution. So this one unit, while it seems expensive, actually saves us a tremendous amount of money. And I would say so far we are super happy with everything that it does. So this manifold basically allows us to switch gears. So the water is currently coming from the well, going through the softener, and then going out to the cisterns. But in order to put this unit through a regeneration cycle, we need to put clean water backwards through the unit, which would be possible if it was plumbed in like a normal pressure tank and well system. But because we're using our cisterns, the water flow actually needs to go backwards from here. So we built a small manifold so we can actually turn off the well, we can turn off the outflow to the cisterns, and then we can turn on the inflow, and that way the water is actually going the correct direction. It's clean water, and that allows the unit to do the regeneration properly. When we first hooked up the system, there was the question, do we pump well water into the cisterns and then treat it on the way down? The problem with that is that the water softener would then only treat the water at the house, rendering the water at the hot tub, the RV, which will be a future shop, and the garden, all of that would just be well water, which wouldn't be a massive problem, but it certainly limits what you're able to do with it. So when we first set the system up, we made the decision to only bring purified or clean water up to the cisterns. That way we never have to try to clean these out. I think once you kind of go down that dirty water path, there's really no coming back from it. Try to clean these cisterns, I think you'll find that it's pretty much impossible to do. Combined with the filtration, the particulate filter or sediment filter feature of the water softener, and the residual chlorine that is present from the regeneration cycle, so far we have seen no degradation of the cleanliness of the cisterns. If you watch the videos where we installed these, we made sure they were spick and span, sparkling before we put them into service. And so far, after over 2.5 years of usage, they still look perfect. Perhaps the most insidious problem that our water has from the well as it relates to the cisterns is the clear water iron. It's something I really hadn't even heard of, but I think we've all probably seen the effects of it on toilets and showers and sinks and things. You see kind of a rust colored stain. It might not be that the water has a rust color to it, but as the oxygen in the air reacts to the iron that's in the water, you get iron oxide, which is rust. And that's what we really don't want to accumulate in the cisterns. That I don't even know if we could get rid of. It's so insidious that it'll stain permanently whatever it touches. We'll talk about some of the fixtures in the house in a second and kind of share what's happening with them. But the good news is I don't see any iron oxide or rust in the cisterns at all. And this water sits here. I mean, it does move and fluctuate, but the reality is this is probably where we would see the iron oxide rust staining the most. We always wanted these cisterns to be a shock absorber in our water system, and we've never really changed that plan. This is not really part of a backup water system. It's more like part of the water system, but it's designed to take the ebbs and flows. When we drilled our well, we didn't know if we would get any water, first of all, if we would get a little bit of water, and whether that water would be any good or not. So it made sense to have some way to kind of trickle water in. That way when we have a high demand period, like watering the garden or taking long showers or running the washing machine or something, if our well was a low flow well, it wouldn't overwhelm the well. So with the cisterns, we could have put maybe 1 to 2 gallons per hour into the cisterns and then taken that back out at whatever demand we needed. But thankfully we've got a great well, so this is kind of a little bit excessive redundancy. We also wanted to be prepared for power outages, and this system being gravity fed obviously requires no electricity to work as long as there's water available. And ironically, since we've connected to the power grid, which isn't something that we originally thought we were going to do, so a lot of the planning for this system was built around being off grid. But anyway, since we've connected to the grid, we really haven't had a power outage. So we really haven't had a strong case for all of this infrastructure. But we're just sure that the day will probably come where we won't have electricity for a while. And of course, we're not going to be relying on our well pump. We'll just be relying on gravity, and our water system should work just fine. 2 winters ago, we had -12 Fahrenheit for around 10 days or so at night. And I was concerned because that's the first time we've really had cold temperatures about whether the current depth of the cisterns was enough to inhibit freezing. We did get some ice on the surface of the water in the cisterns, but we had no issues with the outlet, obviously, at the bottom. We still have a ways to go to wrap up our water project. It's something that's been on the back burner because of all the other projects. And once everything is backfilled and graded correctly, I'm now 100% confident it's going to take some like polar ice age temperatures or whatever to make this system not work properly. So far, with all of our fixtures, the shower toilet, sinks and everything, they're obviously white, and if we were gonna have a water quality issue, especially iron, we would know right away. And so far, everything has been great. We're not getting any hard water buildup on the glass or anything, or on the porcelain. Everything's been super easy to clean. We don't need to use hardly any cleansers at all. And so far the water quality has been fantastic. And obviously we've not had any detrimental issues from anything that's coming from the well. Probably the biggest report card as it pertains to minerals is going to be the water heater. Minerals kill water heaters. They're just really hard on them. They get caked onto the element and then obviously just overworks the element because those minerals act as an insulator, and so the element can't do its job and it ends up just burning it up. We have an on-demand electric water heater right now, and I'm actually flabbergasted. This thing's working fantastic. It's providing the water exactly as we wanted it to. This was never the long-term plan, and eventually this will be going away. But I want to take a look at the elements that are inside, because my imagination is that if there's a water quality problem as it pertains to minerals, this is where we're going to see it. Wow, that is spectacular. There's hardly any buildup there at all. I'm not even sure that that's from us. Maybe that is. Maybe that's copper. From where? Like, we don't even have any copper in our water system. But look at that, guys. There's no mineral buildup on this thing at all. It looks sparkling clean, and if there was going to be any, this is where it would be, because this is the first element in the water heater, and this is the one that takes most of the abuse. The other two in series, I believe the way this works, kind of come on as necessary. So this element is working its butt off anytime we turn the hot water on. I would say that looks amazing for a year of well water. Of course, we've been filtering it, but still, that just gives us some clue that our filtration system is definitely doing its job. Well, so far, all the tests are checking out fantastic. It makes me really happy to see that water heater element looking so good. It's hard to believe that this well has already been with us through several hot tub fills, the start of our family, a good solid gardening season. We actually did an entire video on wildfire preparedness here around the property, and so the well has already been there for us through that. We've had company, we've had visitors, visitors. We've had people helping us. It's been a lot. A lot has happened in the last year, and the well and the water system have all been working fantastic, and I think that that element just confirms what I already suspected. So I think the only thing left to do is an actual water analysis. They say this is something that you should do once a year, especially if you're on a private water system. From what I understand, municipalities can do this as much as a couple of times a day. That's how much they're analyzing their water quality. But of course we own our well. There's no one forcing us to manage or monitor its quality, so it's kind of on us to do that. So what I'd like to do is take another couple of samples from the well and send those off, and then kind of compare them to where we were when we first started using the well. And then after that, I think we'll have a good idea about where we stand, and then we can kind of monitor the well from there. We don't have a lab in our area that does water sample testing, but we found a lab that actually has a drop-off point near us. And so what we do is we pick up their kit at that drop-off point, and then we can take a sample, put it back there. They'll pick it up within a week or so, and then they email us the results. That's the most efficient way for us to do this process. Oh yeah, perfect. Well, we got our well test results back, and I'm super happy with how they turned out. So I thought I'd just share with you guys the synopsis. So on the left side of my board here, we have the wellhead, and then on the right side we have the laundry sink. We've actually been doing the two tests the last 2 years. So this gives us a good apples to apples with where the well is, and it also helps us kind of keep an eye on how our water treatment is doing. So let's look at the wellhead first. I think the takeaway from this is that the wellhead is slightly improving in water quality. Our calcium is down just a hair, but you can see that it's quite high. Look at this, 63.2 the first year, and then we're down to 61.2 this year. So a little bit of drop in calcium, but not a lot. Our total hardness is pretty consistent overall. 14 grains per gallon last year and 13.8 this year. So just a little bit of an improvement. Same thing with iron, a little bit of an improvement. Magnesium, a little bit of an improvement. The manganese didn't really change much, and the pH is exactly where it was last year. So overall, I would say that just a slight improvement on the well, which is good news because it's not going the other way. And then on the laundry sink, there's some pretty big jumps here, partly because of how small these numbers really are. When you jump in half, that's a considerable change. So on the softener, in 2019, we actually had a little bit of measurable calcium in there, 2.4, and this year we're down to 0.7, and that's exactly what we're seeing in our water quality, is that the water quality is really good, and this jives. I feel like maybe we didn't understand the softener before, or maybe we weren't using it properly, or there could be a lot of variables there, but let's just say that 2020 water quality at the laundry sink is pretty solid. Our total hardness is down to 0.5 grains per gallon. So that water softener is bringing us from 13.8 grains per gallon all the way down to 0.5. That is rad sauce. And then look at the iron. We've got that clear water iron that's hiding in there that wants to stain all of our fixtures. And over here there was 0 measurable iron in our sample. That's perfect. That's why we're not seeing any staining in the showers and the toilet and the washing machine and all that stuff. The magnesium, a little bit of magnesium, but nothing compared with what we're starting with. 21.9 down to 20.4, and our water softener is bringing that one down to 1.5, which is great. So far, we just really haven't seen the mineral problems that you would expect from well water, and this kind of shows why. Manganese, nothing showing there. And the pH on our water samples is super consistent year over year. I think for all the risks that everyone perceives from drilling a well, we feel like the worst thing that could happen is you hit water and then you can't use it, which is probably worse than not even drilling at all. This is something that we were concerned about because when you get a community water source, you're pretty much guaranteed decent water. I know there's people out there probably watching this video whose community water supply sucks. And I guess if that's the case, maybe you should get a water treatment system so that you can kind of take care of that yourself and you don't have to deal with the effects or the consequences of that poor water quality. But our point is that just because you have a well does not mean that you have good water. And we feel really fortunate that we drilled a well, we did hit water, it is good water, and so far our house and everything that we're using it for is working amazing. I don't know if it's possible to get better water quality than this given our current circumstances. So if we don't see an improvement, that's fine by us. If we can just hold with where we are, we'll be super happy.